The twin moons of planet Aerith shone through the thick mist, turning the forest silver and blue. The air was alive with strange sounds, clicks, hisses, and distant roars. Somewhere deep inside that wild jungle, a human named Ethan Cross moved silently through the vines, his plasma rifle ready. He was not here for adventure. He was here to find minerals for his next fuel run. But the forest had other plans. Suddenly, a scream broke the night. It was not human, but it was close. High, desperate, filled with pain and fear. Ethan froze. His helmet scanner blinked with multiple moving signals ahead, large, fast, closing in on something smaller. He heard crashing leaves, breaking branches, and another scream. Someone was being hunted. Ethan could have turned back. The mission didn't include saving anyone. But something inside him, maybe instinct, maybe heart, made him run toward the sound. He pushed through glowing ferns taller than his head, slipping on wet roots, branches cutting his arms. The jungle was a maze of shadows and neon light. When he reached a clearing, his breath caught in his throat. A young alien woman stood trapped between sharp rocks, her pale blue skin shining under the moonlight. Her clothes were torn, her arms bleeding. Around her, 3 monstrous boars circled, each twice his size, covered in black armor like hide and tusks glowing with strange red light. Their snorts were deep and violent. Ethan raised his rifle and fired. The first plasma shot hit the ground, burning leaves to ash. The boars turned toward him, eyes red as fire. He shot again, this time hitting one in the shoulder. The creature screamed and charged. Ethan rolled aside, firing again and again. The first boar dropped with a heavy thud, smoke rising from its wound. The other 2 attacked together. Ethan jumped behind a rock, breathing fast, reloading his weapon. One boar rammed the rock, nearly flipping it. The shock sent him falling back. He aimed upward and shot straight into its throat. Blue light flashed and the beast fell still. The last one was smarter. It stopped, watching him with burning eyes. Then it lunged with impossible speed. Ethan barely had time to move. The tusks scraped his armor and sent him crashing into a tree. Pain shot through his ribs. The beast turned again for another charge. He grabbed his combat knife. When it came close, he dived under its tusks, rolling across the ground and stabbing upward with all his strength. The blade pierced through the creature's neck. A deep, gurgling roar filled the air before the boar collapsed beside him. Ethan lay there, chest heaving, heart pounding. The forest went silent again. He looked up. The alien woman was still standing there, her body trembling. Her glowing eyes met his. She whispered something softly in a language he didn't know. Then in a fragile voice she said one word clearly, human. Ethan froze. No one on this planet should know that word. The colonies had declared this world uninhabited by intelligent species, just wild fauna and dangerous terrain. But this woman, she looked right at him as if she had seen humans before. He stepped closer slowly, lowering his weapon. "You can speak?" he asked. The woman tilted her head, her breathing heavy. "Oh man," she repeated, pointing at him. Then her knees gave out and she collapsed onto the ground. Ethan rushed forward and caught her before she hit the dirt. Her skin was cold. He could feel her heart beating fast under his hands. Her body was light, fragile, but covered in small cuts from the chase. "Hey, stay with me," he said softly. "You're safe now." Her eyes flickered open for a second. She looked into his face, almost like she was trying to remember something. Then, she whispered. He froze again. She said his name. "How do you know my name?" he asked in shock, but she didn't answer. Her eyes rolled back and she fainted completely. Ethan looked around. The jungle still glowed faintly, the dead boars steaming on the ground. He could hear distant sounds again, maybe more predators coming. He had to move. Lifting the alien woman gently in his arms, he started walking toward his hidden cruiser. Every step was heavy, his armor damaged, his mind full of questions. Who was she? How did she know him? And why were those beasts chasing her? The forest watched him as he walked, shadows moving between the trees, eyes glowing from the dark. It felt as if the planet itself was awake now, whispering his name. By the time he reached the clearing where his small cruiser was hidden, dawn was breaking. The sky was red and gold. He looked down at the sleeping alien woman and whispered to himself, "Looks like this planet isn't as empty as they said." Then he placed her gently inside the ship and started the engines. Somewhere deep in the forest, unseen creatures screamed again, but this time they sounded angry. Ethan didn't look back. He knew the real story had just begun. Inside the small cruiser, Silence filled the cabin except for the hum of the engines. Ethan placed the alien woman on a medical bed and covered her with a thermal blanket. Her breathing was weak but steady. He connected a scanner to her wrist. Her pulse was fast, her blood strange and glowing faintly blue. The ship's computer couldn't identify her species. Ethan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. "Who are you?" he muttered. He kept replaying the moment she whispered his name. It was impossible. No one here should know who he was. He was just a miner, a scavenger, not anyone famous or important. As the cruiser lifted through the mist, rain began to fall outside, hitting the metal hull like soft drums. The jungle faded below, and soon the stars appeared. Ethan set a course for orbit, somewhere safe enough to rest. But before he could activate the autopilot, he heard a soft voice. "Ethan." He turned fast. The alien woman was awake, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She stared at him, not with fear, but with something else, recognition. "How do you know my name?" he asked quietly, moving closer. She blinked slowly, her voice trembling. "You came back," Ethan frowned. "Back? We've never met." The woman reached for the chain around her neck. Hanging from it was a small metal pendant, dull and cracked with age. She held it out toward him. Ethan took it carefully. His breath stopped when he saw what was engraved on it, the symbol of the Earth Expeditionary Fleet. That fleet had vanished 50 years ago. His father had told him stories about them, brave explorers who left Earth to make peace with new worlds, but they never returned. No signals, no survivors. He looked at her again. "Where did you get this?" She looked away, her voice low. "It was given. By one of your kind. A long time ago." Ethan's mind spun. "You're telling me humans were here before?" "Yes," she whispered, her eyes full of emotion. "And they saved us." Before he could ask more, the ship's alarm suddenly blared. Beep, beep. Red lights flashed across the control panel. Radar showed multiple moving dots approaching fast. "Damn it," Ethan said, jumping into the pilot seat. "Looks like those things from the jungle had friends." The woman sat up, panic in her voice. "No, not boars. Hunters." "Hunters?" he repeated. "They will kill me if they find me," she cried, gripping the edge of the seat. Outside the window, the stars shifted. Tiny silver shapes appeared, drones with glowing red eyes slicing through the darkness like knives. They were fast, mechanical, and locked straight on the cruiser. Ethan fired up the engines. "Hold tight." The ship roared forward, engines screaming as he dodged plasma bolts shooting past them. The jungle below flashed with explosions as the drones followed. Ethan swerved, rolled, and climbed higher. But the drones kept coming faster each second. "Who are they?" he shouted over the noise. "They serve the ones who hate humans," she answered. "They know you saved me. They will destroy you too." "Not if I can help it," Ethan growled. He pulled a lever, sending the cruiser into a sudden dive through the clouds. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the drones, chasing them like dark ghosts. One plasma bolt hit the side of the ship. Sparks burst across the cabin. The woman screamed. Ethan tried to steady the controls, but half the system was down. "Hang on," he shouted. "We're jumping." He reached for the hyperdrive lever, but before he could activate it, the woman pressed her hand over his. "Wait," she said urgently. "I can help. Trust me." Ethan looked at her. Her eyes glowed brighter, reflecting the flashing lights around them. "What are you doing?" She reached over to the navigation panel and pressed a hidden sequence of buttons, her fingers moving fast and sure. The console beeped in response, displaying access granted Human Command Protocol 7. Ethan's eyes widened. "How do you know those codes?" She looked straight at him, her voice steady for the first time. "Because humans once protected my people, and their knowledge lives inside me." The ship jolted as a massive surge of power coursed through the engines. A bright light filled the cabin. The drones outside exploded one by one, unable to follow as the cruiser vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a burning sky. When they reappeared, they were above the planet's orbit, safe for now. The stars glittered around them, and the damage alarm slowly went silent. Ethan leaned back, breathing hard. "Okay," he said finally, staring at her. "Start talking. Who are you really?" The woman looked down at the pendant again, her hand shaking. "My name is Liara," she said softly. "And you, Ethan Cross, are not the first human I've met." Ethan stared, speechless. Liara looked up, her expression full of sadness. "But you might be the last." Outside, the wreckage of destroyed drones floated through space like broken stars. Somewhere far away, deep in the void, a larger ship began to move, its scanners searching for the human who dared to return. The hunt had just begun. The stars outside Ethan's cruiser looked calm, but the peace didn't last long. The radar pulsed again, soft at first, then louder. More red dots appeared on the screen, spreading fast. The drones hadn't been destroyed completely. Some had survived, and now they were calling something bigger. Ethan tightened his gloves, his jaw set. "They're tracking us," he said, scanning the radar. "And this time it's not just drones." Liara stood behind him, her silver-blue skin glowing faintly in the low light. Her eyes widened at the patterns on the screen. "They sent hunters," she whispered. "Not machines. Living ships. They can smell fear through space. Don't smell fear," Ethan muttered. "Great." He pulled the cruiser into stealth mode, dimming the cabin lights. The ship glided silently, hiding behind drifting debris. But the radar showed the hunters closing in from all directions. Liara grabbed his arm. "We cannot fight them. They hunt for my kind and for yours. They obey the high circle." Ethan glanced at her. "Who's that?" She looked away, her voice tight. "The rulers of my world. They erase the old stories. The stories of humans who once came here." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Why erase them?" "Because they feared humans," she whispered. "They feared what your kind could do." The words hit him like a punch. He had always thought of humans as small in the galaxy, just explorers, traders, dreamers. But here on this world, humans were remembered as something greater, and feared for it. Before Ethan could ask more, the ship jolted violently. Warning lights flashed red. Something massive had locked onto them from behind. "Hold on," he shouted, spinning the ship. A bright beam of light swept past their hull, barely missing them. Through the viewport, Ethan saw it, a sleek black vessel shaped like a bird of prey, wings stretching wide, engines burning violet. "That's a hunter ship," Liara said, voice shaking. "They can tear through armor like paper." Ethan gritted his teeth. "Not mine." He pushed the thrusters to full power. The cruiser roared forward, diving between drifting asteroids. Rocks exploded behind them as the hunter ship fired again and again. The shock waves rattled every bolt in the cockpit. Liara held onto the seat, shouting, "You cannot outrun them forever." "Then I'll outthink them," Ethan replied. He cut the engines suddenly, letting the cruiser drift into a dark asteroid shadow. The hunter ship zoomed past, searching. For a moment, silence returned. Liara looked at him, confused. "What are you doing?" "Hiding," he said with a grin. "Old Earth trick. Let the predator think it's won." He turned off every light, every system except life support. The ship floated dead, invisible among the rocks. Minutes passed. Then a low hum filled the air, something moving nearby. Liara leaned forward. "They're scanning." Ethan stayed still, barely breathing. The radar flickered, showing the hunter slowly circling back. Then just as it turned away, a second blip appeared, a new signal unknown. "What's that?" Liara asked. Ethan zoomed in. The shape was massive, silent, ancient. It wasn't a hunter, it was something else, the wreckage, Liara whispered. "We're near the grave of heroes." The radar filled with dots, old, broken human ships floating in silence. The remains of the lost Earth expeditionary fleet. Ethan stared at the view outside. The ghostly shapes of starships covered in dust and ice, drifting like tombs. "This can't be real," he said softly. "They actually made it here." Liara touched the glass, tears shining in her eyes. "My ancestors said the humans died protecting us." No one believed the stories. Suddenly, the hunter ship reappeared, moving between the wrecks. It fired again, hitting one of the old ships. The impact sent debris spinning everywhere. Ethan's jaw clenched. "That's it. No more running." He powered up the engines. "You said your people built shrines here, right? Any of them still working?" Liara nodded quickly, pointing. "Their old human beacon station, but it's dangerous." "Everything's dangerous today," Ethan said, steering toward it. As they approached, the hunter ship launched smaller drones. Plasma fire filled the void. Ethan twisted the cruiser through wreckage, sparks flying across the console. He shot back, hitting one drone dead on. Another exploded near the hull, shaking the ship. "Hang on," Ethan yelled. Liara placed her hand over a glowing crystal on the dashboard, the same symbol as the pendant she wore. "Let them remember," she whispered. The beacon ahead suddenly lit up, sending a golden pulse through space. It spread across the graveyard like a wave of light. The old ships began to glow one by one, ancient systems waking after half a century of silence. The hunter ship hesitated. Its scanners flickered. "What's happening?" Ethan shouted. Liara smiled faintly. "You woke them." The old fleet hummed with life, forgotten engines roaring again. But before Ethan could react, the cruiser was caught in the beacon's magnetic field. The light surrounded them, pulling them toward a massive shipwreck in the center. Ethan tried to fight it, but the controls didn't respond. "Liara, what's it doing?" Her expression softened. "It's welcoming us home." The cruiser drifted into the shadows of the largest ship, its name still glowing faintly on the side. EEF Horizon. Ethan whispered. "That's an Earth ship." Liara nodded slowly. "Yes, and inside one of your own still sleeps." Outside, the hunter ships regrouped, circling like wolves around the ancient fleet. But deep within the wreckage, a new light flickered. Something old, something human, stirring awake for the first time in 50 years. The real war was about to begin. The cruiser drifted slowly into the shadow of the massive wreck. The words EEF Horizon glowed faintly across its torn hull, half buried under centuries of dust and ice. The ship was dead, or so it seemed. Ethan switched on the floodlights. The beams sliced through darkness, revealing rusted corridors, broken turrets, and shattered insignias of the old Earth expeditionary fleet. The sight made his chest tighten. He had grown up hearing stories about the fleet that vanished before his father was born. And now here it was, real, silent, waiting. Liara's eyes glowed with faint silver light. "This is where it began," she whispered. "The humans came to our world and fought to protect us. When the storm took the sun, they stayed behind to save my people." Ethan glanced at her. "And died here." She shook her head gently. "Not all." The cruiser's clamps locked against the hull with a deep clang. Ethan grabbed his helmet and rifle. "Stay close," he said, opening the airlock. Cold mist poured into the cabin. The air smelled like old metal and dust. Their footsteps echoed through the long corridor as they stepped into the derelict ship. Everything was dark, except for faint blue lights flickering deep inside like dying stars refusing to go out. Ethan brushed his hand across a wall and saw faded names etched into the metal. "Captain Reyes, Commander Holt, Chief Engineer Valen." He paused. These were real people. Liara moved slowly beside him. "Their story was forbidden on my world. The High Circle said humans brought chaos, but my grandmother told me the truth, that humans brought hope." Ethan stopped walking. "Why would your leaders lie about that?" "Because hope can make people question power," she said softly. Before he could reply, a low sound echoed through the corridor, like metal breathing. The ship trembled slightly. "Did you hear that?" he asked. Liara nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Something still lives here." They followed the sound deeper into the heart of the ship. Dust floated like ghosts around them. The temperature dropped, their breaths fogging inside the helmets. The flickering lights grew stronger as they approached the central chamber. The door to the cryo bay was half open, frost covering its edges. Ethan forced it open with his shoulder, and a blast of icy air hit them. Inside, rows of stasis pods lined the walls, hundreds of them. Most were cracked or empty, but one pod in the center glowed faintly blue. "Someone's still alive," Ethan said, moving closer. Liara placed a trembling hand on the glass. Inside lay a man, old, bearded, wearing the torn uniform of a fleet commander. The tag read, "Commander Arik Vale." "Impossible," Ethan whispered. "He's been here for 50 years. Liara pressed a sequence on the control panel. Sparks flew, but the system responded weakly. The glass hissed, steam escaping as the pod unlocked. The man's eyes fluttered open. He gasped for air, his first breath in half a century. Ethan quickly removed his helmet. "Easy, sir. You're safe." The commander coughed, trying to sit up. His eyes met Ethan's, then Liara's. Confusion flashed in them, followed by recognition. You're human," he rasped. "Yes," Ethan said. "Name's Ethan Cross, explorer. Found you by accident." The old man gave a weak smile. "There are no accidents in space, son." He turned to Liara, his voice trembling. "You're one of them." "The survivors, then." "We did it." Liara knelt beside him. "You saved my people," she whispered. "But your story was lost." Arik's expression darkened. "It was never lost. It was buried. The council, the ones who rule your world, They wanted peace built on silence. Ethan frowned. Why silence? Arik looked between them, his voice a mix of pain and pride. Because humans made them remember what fear felt like, not because we hurt them, but because we were willing to die for them. The High Circle saw that as dangerous. Liara lowered her gaze. They call humans destroyers now. Arik gave a soft laugh. Destroyers? No, we were dreamers. He coughed again, gripping Ethan's hand. Listen to me, son. The truth must rise again. If they find out she's with you, they'll come for both of you. As if on cue, the ship shuddered violently. Sirens blared. Ethan turned to the window. Red lights filled the darkness outside. The hunters had found them. They're locking on. Ethan shouted. Arik grabbed his arm. You can't fight them here. Take the girl, go to the bridge. There's a way out. What about you? Ethan asked. The commander's eyes burned with quiet fire. I've been asleep for 50 years. It's time I wake the others. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. He helped Liara to her feet, and together they ran through the dark halls as explosions rocked the ship. Behind them, Commander Arik opened the old command terminal, his hands shaking as he entered forgotten codes. All around, the stasis pods flickered to life. Outside the hull, the ghost fleet began to awaken, one ship after another lighting up across the graveyard like stars reborn. As Ethan and Liara reached the bridge, the horizon of space glowed with the light of returning giants. For the first time in half a century, the humans of the lost fleet breathed again, and the galaxy was about to remember what it meant to fear and to hope. The entire ship trembled as the first lights flickered back to life. Ancient systems hummed, gears grinding awake after decades of silence. Dust fell from the ceiling as power coursed through the veins of the EEF horizon. Ethan steadied himself on a railing, watching in disbelief as screens lit up one by one. The ghost ship was no longer dead. It was breathing again. Commander Vale did it, Liara said softly, staring at the glowing walls. He's waking them. Ethan turned toward her. All of them? Her eyes shimmered in the reflection of the control panels. Every ship in the graveyard. The fleet is rising. Through the shattered windows of the bridge, Ethan saw the impossible. The derelict ships floating around them were coming alive, one after another. Faint blue lights blinked across their hulls like stars reigniting after an age of darkness. The silence of space turned into a low, steady hum of awakening engines. Then a voice echoed through the ship's speakers, rough but proud. This is Commander Arik Vale, to any human frequencies still active. If you can hear me, the fleet endures. Ethan exhaled, smiling faintly. He's still alive, Liara closed her eyes. He's not just alive, he's leading them again. Before Ethan could respond, the radar screamed. Dozens of new contacts appeared, enemy ships sharp and fast diving toward them like arrows. The hunters had called reinforcements. The High Circle had unleashed their full force. Here they come, Ethan muttered, gripping the controls. Liara took her seat beside him. We can't win against so many. Then we don't fight alone. Ethan tapped into the old comms network, connecting with the ghost fleet. Fleet Command, this is Ethan Cross. The horizon is under fire. Requesting support. For a moment, only static. Then a deep voice replied. It was Commander Vale. Copy that, son. You're not alone anymore. Outside, the fleet began to move. Old human battleships shifted formation, engines burning like blue suns. Weapons that hadn't fired in 50 years powered up, humming with energy. The stars themselves seemed to tremble as the forgotten army of Earth prepared for war. Liara stared at the view in awe. I never thought I'd see this. Humans and machines. Rising from death, Ethan's jaw tightened. Let's give them a reason they woke up. The first wave of enemy fighters dove in, plasma streaks lighting up the darkness. Ethan steered the cruiser between wrecks, dodging blasts that tore through space like lightning. One hit grazed their wing, spinning the ship violently. Stabilizers failing. Liara shouted. Ethan gritted his teeth and slammed a lever. Not yet. The cruiser straightened, barely holding together. He looked outside again, and his heart pounded. The EEF Horizon's cannons had come alive. Massive beams of blue light shot across the void, vaporizing enemy ships in brilliant bursts. The ghost fleet fought like it had never stopped. Around them, battleships moved in perfect formation, covering one another, protecting the horizon. Ethan's screen lit up with multiple human comm signals. We're detecting a life form not in our registry, one voice said. He looked at Liara. They mean you. Liara hesitated. Then tell them. I fight with humanity. Ethan nodded, pressing the comms button. Fleet Command, she's an ally. Without her, none of you would be awake right now. There was silence. Then Commander Vale's voice came back, full of pride. Then she's one of us. Liara smiled faintly, tears in her glowing eyes. Your kind never stopped surprising me. As they fought together, the combined might of old and new burned through the hunter fleet. The enemy began to retreat, their formation breaking under the storm of human fire. But just when victory seemed close, the radar blinked again, this time with a signal larger than any before. A massive warship emerged from hyperspace, black as the void itself. Its hull carried the symbol of the High Circle. Liara's face paled. That's their command vessel, the Obsidian Crown. It can destroy an entire planet. Ethan stared at the monstrous ship, filling their view. Then we'll have to end it before it ends us. Vale's voice came through once more. Ethan, listen to me. The old fleet doesn't have the strength to fight that thing. But there's one last option. A pulse buried inside the Horizon's core. It's a failsafe. It'll destroy the enemy fleet, and the Horizon with it. Ethan's stomach dropped. That's suicide. The commander's tone softened. It's a sacrifice. The same kind we made before. Liara's hand trembled as she turned to Ethan. If he does that, he'll die. Ethan looked at the fleet, human ships, once dead, now alive again, fighting for a future they would never see. Then maybe we don't let him do it alone. Liara stared at him. What are you saying? He smiled faintly. If the past is dying for the future, then maybe the present can fight to protect it. Outside, the Obsidian Crown began charging its main cannon, a beam of crimson light growing stronger. Ethan gripped the controls, his eyes burning with determination. Let's end this. The cruiser dove toward the enemy flagship, engines screaming, weaving between fire and debris. The light of the ghost fleet shone behind them like a sea of stars following their last captain. The awakening was complete, not just of ships, but of humanity's spirit. The galaxy would remember this night, not as the return of ghosts, but as the rebirth of courage. The silence before the storm was unbearable. The ghost fleet floated among the stars, glowing faintly blue, like spirits waiting for judgment. Beyond them, the Obsidian Crown loomed, black and immense, its hull shaped like the wings of a predator. Red energy pulsed along its surface, gathering power for a strike that could wipe out everything. Ethan stood in the cockpit, sweat dripping down his neck. That thing's a monster, he muttered. Liara's eyes never left the view ahead. It feeds on stolen light. Every ship it destroys becomes part of its armor. Then we'll tear that armor apart, Ethan said. Piece by piece, he activated the comm link. Fleet Command, this is Cross, ready for final assault. Commander Vale's voice came through, rough but steady. Copy that, son. We'll give you cover. You and the girl find the weak point. The Crown's main core lies beneath its central spine. If that goes, everything else follows. Ethan smiled grimly. Understood. Outside, the old Earth fleet formed up, lines of ancient battleships moving with ghostly precision. The hum of their engines echoed through the void like a heartbeat returning to life. Across the distance, the alien armada of the High Circle moved closer, their ships sleek, fast, and cruelly beautiful. Then came the first blast. The Obsidian Crown unleashed a beam of pure red plasma, tearing through the darkness. One of the ghost ships, an old destroyer named Vigilance, took the hit directly. It split apart in silence, its fragments glowing like falling stars. Liara closed her eyes. They still fight for a world that forgot them. Ethan gritted his teeth. Not for long. He dove the cruiser straight into the chaos, weaving between streaks of plasma fire. Explosions flashed on every side, painting the stars in red and blue. The fleet followed behind him, hundreds of ships moving like one body, driven by the will of their reborn commander. Commander Vale, Ethan called. We're approaching the Crown's lower deck. Send us some breathing room. Already done, Vale replied. You'll have 30 seconds. Make them count. All around, the ghost ships opened fire, their cannons pounding the alien lines. The High Circle's vessels scattered, forming a defensive wall to protect their flagship. But the old humans fought like legends, each ship burning brighter as if refusing to die again. Ethan's cruiser shot through the gap, flames licking its hull. He could feel the vibrations through the floor. the hum of old engines straining at their limits. Liara, where's the weak point? She touched the console, her fingers glowing faintly blue. A holographic image appeared. A map of the obsidian crown. There, she said, pointing at a pulsing red spot deep in the central spine. That's the heart. Destroy that and the ship will fall. Let's make history then, Ethan said. They flew lower into the enemy ship's shadow. Massive turrets rotated toward them. Beams of red energy cut across their path. The cruiser twisted violently, alarms screaming. Shields at 10%, Liara shouted. Good enough, Ethan replied. He dove beneath the crown's underbelly, barely avoiding a burst that tore through a nearby wreck. Then, out of nowhere, a massive wing-shaped drone emerged, blocking their path. Ethan cursed. That's a Guardian. Those things are suicide shields. The drone fired 2 plasma lances. One grazed their hull, knocking out stabilizers. The ship spun wildly. Liara screamed as sparks rained from the ceiling. Hold on, Ethan roared. He pulled the cruiser into a spin, firing all front cannons. The shots hit the drone's joint, breaking one of its wings. The explosion threw their ship off balance again, but the path was finally clear. Now, Liara shouted. The core. Ethan locked the targeting system. Missiles armed. Liara placed her hand over his. For the humans who never came home, she whispered. He nodded. For the ones who still believe. He fired. The missiles streaked across the void, disappearing into the crown's spine. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire warship lit up with red cracks like veins bursting from within. Direct hit, Liara cried. But before they could escape, a counterbeam erupted from the crown, striking the cruiser. The cockpit filled with smoke. Systems failed one after another. Ethan felt the ship spin out of control, alarms blaring. Ethan! Liara screamed, grabbing his arm. He fought the controls, but the engines were gone. Brace yourself. They crashed into a nearby wreck, metal shrieking as everything went black. When Ethan opened his eyes, he was lying in the dark. The air was thick with smoke. He coughed, forcing himself up. Liara? Her faint voice came from beside him. I'm here. She was bleeding, her skin dimmer than before, but alive. Outside the viewport, the obsidian crown was breaking apart, its structure collapsing, its energy core exploding in blinding light. The shockwave spread through the void, scattering the remaining enemy ships. And through it all, the ghost fleet stood firm, shielding the horizon and the wounded cruiser from the blast. Vale's voice crackled weakly through the comms. You did it, son. The crown is gone. Ethan looked at the burning sky, his voice hoarse. Not me, all of us. He turned to Liara, who smiled weakly. You humans never stop fighting, do you? He grinned faintly. Guess it's what we're made for. As the wreckage drifted around them, the once dead fleet floated silently, their mission complete. The graveyard had become a battlefield, and from that battlefield, legends had risen once again, but far in the distance, hidden beyond the ashes, something else was moving, another signal. Faint but human, Liara saw it first. Ethan, look. A small beacon blinked on the far edge of the system, carrying a message both ancient and new. Earth Expeditionary Fleet, Phase 2 initiated. Ethan smiled through the blood on his lip. Then maybe, this isn't the end. Smoke drifted through the fractured hull of Ethan's cruiser, turning every beam of light into a ghostly haze. The war was over, or at least this battle was. Outside the viewport, the stars shimmered with quiet pride. The wreck of the obsidian crown spun slowly in the distance, its black armor cracked open, its red core finally extinguished. Ethan sat slumped against the console, his suit torn and his face streaked with dirt. He blinked hard, forcing his eyes to stay open. We're alive, he whispered, as if trying to believe it. Liara stirred beside him, wrapped in a blanket. Her pale blue skin glowed faintly again, her breathing steady. Alive, and still falling apart, she said softly, trying to smile. Ethan chuckled weakly. Hey, at least we're in one piece. Through the static of the comms, Commander Vale's voice broke in, faint but proud. Ethan, Liara, the Crown's fleet is gone. You did it. Ethan pressed the button. Couldn't have done it without you, Commander. You woke the dead. Vale's laugh was tired but warm. The dead were just waiting for someone to remind them why they fought. Outside, the ghost fleet hovered silently over the graveyard. Some ships were damaged, others barely holding together, but they remained, a monument of light and courage. Liara gazed out the window, her voice trembling. The high circle will fall now. Their power depended on fear. When the truth spreads about what humans did, our worlds will finally change. Ethan leaned closer. You think your people will believe? She smiled faintly. They have to. The sky itself is shining with proof. Ethan looked again. All around them, ships that had once been forgotten now glowed like stars, their hulls carrying both human and alien markings. Workers in sleek suits moved between them, repairing damage, welding hope back into the metal. The EEF horizon, once a tomb, was now a living city in the stars. Hours later, Ethan stood on the horizon's bridge beside Commander Vale. The old man's body was weak, but his eyes still burned bright. You did good, son, he said. You reminded the galaxy that humanity isn't a myth. Ethan shook his head. No, you did that. You kept the fire alive, Vale chuckled. Maybe, but you carried it forward. His gaze turned distant. We once believed the stars would remember us. Seems they finally did. Liara entered the bridge, her injuries healed, her presence calm and radiant. She bowed slightly to the commander. Your fleet is legend on my world. Soon your story will be told again. Vale smiled faintly. Then maybe peace will finally mean something. A moment later, alarms beeped softly, not a warning, but a signal. A transmission appeared on the screen, small but clear. Incoming beacon, Earth Expeditionary Fleet Phase 2. Ethan's heart stopped for a beat. It's real, he said quietly. There's another fleet out there. Liara turned toward him, eyes wide. More humans? Yeah, Ethan whispered, watching the signal pulse. New explorers. Maybe even descendants of the old fleets. They're coming this way. Vale closed his eyes, relief softening his face. Then the dream continues. Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder. Rest now, Commander. You've done enough. The old man nodded slowly, smiling. Take care of her, son. And take care of them, all of them. Humanity's not just about surviving. It's about making others want to survive, too. With that, Commander Vale turned back to the stars, his gaze fixed on the endless horizon. The bridge lights dimmed around him. Later, Ethan and Liara stood together on the deck of the horizon, watching as repair drones floated among the ships. The ghost fleet was no longer silent. It was alive with laughter, work, and light. Liara broke the silence. When I first saw you in the forest, I thought you were a myth. A human walking the earth again. Ethan smiled softly. Funny, when I saw you, I thought I was dreaming too. She tilted her head, her eyes shimmering like moonlight. Now that the dream is real, what will you do next? He looked toward the beacon blinking in the distance. We'll find the others. Tell them what happened here. Show them that the lost fleet still fights for something. Liara nodded, stepping closer. Then I will go with you. My people must see that humans don't bring destruction. They bring light. Ethan met her gaze, his voice quiet but sure. Then we go together. Outside, the stars began to move. Ships of the ghost fleet formed a new path. A trail of light stretching deep into the cosmos. The horizon's engines hummed softly as it turned toward the signal. Liara reached out, her hand finding Ethan's. Do you think Earth still remembers us? She asked. He looked at her with a small smile. Maybe not yet. But after this, they will. The horizon's engines flared brighter, lifting the fleet from the graveyard that had once been their tomb. Across the darkness, the beacon of Phase 2 grew stronger, calling them toward a new dawn. As they soared through the stars, Liara whispered, Humans, they never stop reaching, do they? Ethan grinned. No, because the moment we stop reaching, we stop being human. Behind them, the ghost fleet followed like a constellation reborn, an alliance of human and alien ships shining together. The war was over, but the story of humanity had just begun again, brighter than ever, and somewhere far beyond the known worlds. A new voice echoed through the stars. To those who still believe, humanity endures. The promise of tomorrow had arrived.